You are with the Urban Debate here with us tonight. I'm Seher Zama. There are two separate drug racket cases which are being investigated in the country. One is the Karnataka drug rackets case, which has been busted. And the second is where arrests have been made from Bombay and Goa, and the agency is still trying to connect the dots, but which is largely now being called the Bollywood drugs cartel. But in both these cases here, the agencies have chosen to say that they're going to be nabbing high-profile names. These are rich names, famous names, celebrity names, names connected to politicians as well. But is that the right spectrum to view this through? Is it always about them, the rich, the high-profile, the influential? Do we need to be worried about us as middle-class people, as ordinary middle-class people, and how this affects us? There is an increase in drug mafia across the country. There is a possibility that brings much closer at our own homes, affecting our children, affecting our youngsters, affecting our neighborhood as well. That is how we should be viewing these developments. Let's talk to our panelists about this tonight. Let me introduce you to our guests. We have with us Dr. Deepak Raheja, who is the Director for Hope Care India. Now, this is an important psychiatric and rehab center. We also have with us Mr. Shankar Bidari, former DGP from Karnataka. Dr. Sajila Meni is at a very important hospital in Delhi, which is the Sri Gangaram Hospital, as a de-addiction specialist. She's also written the book, The Last Puff. We're also going to be getting you a voice from someone who has been a drug addict and has been working on de-addiction. We're of course going to be protecting the identity of this person. And we have senior journalist with us, Mr. S. Ramanathan. We're going to first make a start with the person here who is affected, who has gone through system abuse, substance abuse, drug abuse, and is right now still working on de-addiction. I wanted to know from you on how the experience has been. Experience with respect to how easily available these drugs are and how difficult is the process of de-addiction here. Yes, this question is for the victim first, if my voice is going through.
Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to answer this question by saying that drugs are easily available in India. I had my first drug in a party in a nightclub. That was 10 years back. And basically, I have a disease of alcoholism. And with alcohol, somebody spiked my drink. It gave me a high. And since that day, I tried various drugs in nightclubs. There were joints, there were, some party tablets, there were rave parties in certain parts of India. So drugs has become like over-the-counter thing. They are very easily available. And when I had it for the first time, along with my choice of drink, that was an amazing high for me. And I wanted to have it again and again. So this feeling of having more and more, this is what these drugs did to me. And because I wanted to numb my feelings of pain, what I was going through professionally and personally, the drugs helped a great deal in doing that. And that is what made me getting really addicted to it.
Right, and in this process of de-addiction that you're going through, is de-addiction also as easily available as professional help and de-addiction centers, or do you feel there needs to be more? Is it just across big cities here? There need to be more. There need to be more female attendants present in these de-addiction centers as well. How has your experience been on that?
So I would would just like to share my own experience here. It was about 12 years back that I was working for a great corporate firm, and my career was skyrocketing. I noticed that I was consuming a lot of alcohol at night and I could not reach office in the morning. Apart from that, I started having sleeping pills, and like I shared, I started getting drugs from various sources. So this, it just kept a question mark in my mind that what is it that I'm doing wrong? There's something wrong with me. So I approached one psychiatrist, and he's with us here, Dr. Raheja. I would like to take his name. For me, he's a God sent messenger because he gave me the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. He treated me for 2 years for counseling. He gave me anti-addiction drugs, but I was so abusive with medicines. Though he had a rehab of his own, but he did not tell me that I should go to his rehab. He actually guided me very honestly and gave me the message of this fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today we have meetings all over the world of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I talk about India, we have hundreds of meetings every day. It's a spiritual program completely free of cost. Apart from this, I was taking counseling, I was taking therapy, and this is what has helped me. I'm still into recovery. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I think it will go on till my last breath, one day at a time.
All right. So yes, of course, this is something that one needs to be very patient with, and more importantly, this is a process. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. It's a process. Recovery is a very, very slow process. And the best thing about the program is that we are told that it's just one day at a time program. If somebody told me that leave alcohol, leave drugs on the very first day, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But we have a fellowship of men and women who are also addicts and alcoholics and help us to deal with this problem of addiction one day at a time. As far as your question about de-addiction facilities is concerned, yes, there are a lot of de-addiction centers in Delhi NCR that I am aware of. But yes, there is a shortage of de-addiction centers for women particularly. So, and there is a lot of taboo in the society when, we cannot come out in the public. Like right now, I have to hide my identity and, I have to talk about addiction because it's still not accepted in society as a disease. And what I have learned in my recovery tenure is that this is a disease of addiction and there is a solution available to it, and that is the 12-step program. And some of us, like including me, I have taken therapy, I've taken counseling sessions, and that is what has greatly helped me.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you sharing your experience here with us, but please stay on with us. But it was important here to listen to you because people who are vulnerable and susceptible to becoming drug addicts, these are real instances, real voices here. This goes beyond the well-known names that are flashed on a daily basis. Let's get in Mr. Shankar with us, who's the former DGP of Karnataka. This is an ongoing investigation which is in Karnataka, a major drugs racket which has just been busted. A couple of arrests have been made, and we also know some well-known names, the well-known actor who's just been summoned here on Monday. In your understanding and in your experience and what you've seen in the past years here, does busting of these drug rackets really have an impact on ground? Because I was just going through some figures. In number of drugs that are seized year after year have consistently increased, and so have cases of drug addiction increased year after year. Drug abuse, substance abuse, that is as much increasing year after year. So what really is the big takeaway here in multiple drugs rackets that are busted? What is the real impact that one gets to see on ground? Is it really helping ordinary people?
It is to be appreciated that the Narcotics Control Bureau has conducted one or two raids in Bangalore and unearthed a racket of supply of the drugs to students and people in the cinema field and others. There is no point in distinguishing any particular sector of the society in this regard. But the issue is that the drug usage of the drug is prevalent not only now, but as I remember for the last 40-50 years. It has started with the advent of the so-called hippie culture in Goa and all. Otherwise, India was accustomed only to the traditional drugs like ganja and poppy. But the question is now this heroin and all, they made their entries into India somewhere around 1960s. See, the government of India also realized the importance of curbing, controlling, and preventing the abuse of the drug abuse, and has enacted a very stringent law in 1985. That is the Narcotics, Drugs, and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. This act is quite powerful. Act is quite effective also, and large number of cases are being booked. But the issue is that in certain fields like cinema field and students of the rich people and students neglected at their homes, students who are not being given proper grooming are more likely to fall prey to this drug abuse. The main advantage of the drug abuse or the consumption of the drug is that they feel hallucination, they feel elated, they feel happy, and they feel free from all worries. Because of that, the drug abuse is prevalent, particularly among students, youngsters, and it has become a fashion also. Most of the children of the
Right.
rich people who earn easy money also fall prey to it and treat it as a prestige issue. But the question is that unless it has to be, we have to be on the constantly on the move to prevent the drug abuse, to prevent distribution, to prevent manufacture. The most important thing Narcotics Agency can do, the Central Narcotics Control Bureau can do, because it has got a reach all over India, is that to prevent the smuggling or the arrival of the drugs from abroad. That is very, very important function that has to do. The local distribution, peddling and consumption issues can be taken by the respective state polices. But the Narcotics Bureau must control the influx of
Right.
drugs from outside.
Okay,
You have got
so
it.
busting rackets when it's finally in India is not really going to work here, but nipping it in the bud and when it's really coming in from outside. Mr. S. Ramanathan here, in your view, is there something wrong with the way the system is working here? Because this is more and more rampant, this is more and more easily available.
Well, yes, there's possibly everything wrong with the way we go about, policing drugs in this country. And the first of all is the approach towards it. I think the minute you start criminalizing something more than it should be, with the kind of stigma that we attach to, drug abuse in this country, that is where we lose the plot, right? Of course, it's illegal. Of course, it's harmful. But what are we really standing against here? The problem with drug abuse, substance abuse, is drug dependency, drug de-addiction. These are the bigger problems we should focus more on. And I think that the destigmatization of drug abuse, especially the kind of drugs which can be addictive, is the first step, which we need to do. Second thing is that if you look at the way the NCB or any other agency, the various NIBs across the country in the state in state governments go about policing drugs, they're always playing catch up. Police officers always say we want to control the supply of drugs coming into the country. We want to control the people coming into the country with these drugs, but they have failed for decades. They have failed, and no police force in the world has been able to do that. Why? Because it's impossible to do it, right? We tried policing our airports, and now it's coming through parcels. And now again, the NCB and other, the Customs Department, the NCB, and other police departments are playing catch up. Now things have, the fact of the matter is the drug distribution trade, the drug production trade is always going to be eons ahead of any kind of prohibition or any kind of policing you can do. Which is not to say that policing cannot be done, should not be done, should be stopped. We're not going to obviously give a free hand to any drug dealer or drug producer out there to go about distributing prohibited narcotics. But our focus must be on the controlling drugs or the control of impact of drugs from a public health perspective, right? Policing it for the heck of policing it is something which has demonstrably failed. We need to look at it from a public health issue. We need to figure out how to control it, of course, how to decrease consumption. We have to create awareness. See, right now, if you go into a school, if you go into a college, you can't even speak to students about drugs, right? Because that's the kind of stigma we have attached to it. But those kids are easily are able to go out and get what they want. So if you're not going to address this issue head on, if you're not going to look at it the way that we should be looking at it, the way any advanced society, mature society should be looking at, and accept certain realities of what it has become today, we'll never be able to control the menace. And I do think that it's also very important for us to be able to differentiate.
That's a very important point you've raised. In fact, I'm going to take this. I'm very quickly going to take this to Dr. Meni with us here, who is the de-addiction specialist here. Dr. Meni, what you've heard, apart from the technicalities of how our agencies and authorities are working here on a roundabout catch-up manner, what Ramanathan was explaining here, of really nipping the menace in the bud. That's not really happening. But also as a society addressing it as seriously without a stigma. Because what we really see in these investigations time after time, the way that it hits the headlines is that it's about one celebrity, it's about a Bollywood cartel, it's about rich influential people. It's never accepted as this is as much and much more, even in larger lakhs of numbers here, as much a problem with the regular middle class here as well.
Yeah. First of all, let me just I'll just add on with what sir said. Yes, a policing needs to be done. Very importantly, I would say this is not I am working with the Delhi Tertiary Hospital, I'm working with Sangagangram Hospital, I'm working with drug addicts, and I'm seeing that the age of uptake is decreasing day by day, and there is no socio-economic status as per what the people are saying, but what sir is saying right now. It's like, first of all, we need to understand that we need to work on the availability factor. That is very important. This is a pandemic. I'm working with the hospital, and I'm also doing corporate social responsibility work for different corporates. So in that context, I did meet people from various socio-economic status, from the slum areas, and that was an eye-opener for me. You should see, indeed, earlier I was also thinking that this is the drug is the problem of the rich. No, it is not a problem only of the rich. It is a problem of the rich, but it is not a problem only of the rich. We have drugs available as cheap as 50 rupees. We have drugs available as cheap as 100 rupees. And I have been working in the slum areas of Delhi, and I've seen that people, small children as young as 8 years, 7 years, 10 years, with whom we can't even start the treatment because that's not the time we can give them medication and stuff. People are hooked to various amount of drugs, not the recreation drugs. Yes, cannabis is available as I can see drugs are available as easy as candy. Yes, drugs are available as easy as candy. It's available with most of the I don't know what the racket is. I think they're targeting the young people who are drug addicts are becoming drug peddlers. So the mafia is so big. The mafia and the police is also involved in it. I've seen that. I can only tell you the first-hand experience that I've seen. It's a pandemic. We need to address it in that way. And it's not only about the drug thing. The drug leads to a lot of crime. Robbery. The other day I was meeting this guy and I said, "Aap snack kahan se lete ho? I mean, you are not doing anything. Tumhare paas kuch nahi hai. Kaise lete ho?" Then he said, "We are pocket watchers." So that means they were pickpocketers. They are not they're not educated. So pocket watchers bolte the. So it is leading to a lot of prostitution, lot of rapes, lot of things involved. It's not only one thing. It leads to a conglomerate of stuff.
Lots of social ill which is connected. Yes, absolutely. That's right. Dr. Raheja, who's the director of Hope Care India here with us here as well. Dr. Raheja, in your view, do you think that this is increasingly also impacting young adults, leave alone young adults, even young teenagers? Are you aware with or dealing with cases here which includes young teenagers?
So I totally agree that as my earlier esteemed speakers have said, that it's a multi-pronged problem which is hugely weeded in the fabric of society. Yes, over the years we have seen that the age of the users have gone down, and it traverses from a drug user cartel a drug user lobby in Bollywood. We see a drug user population in the young slum dwellers, in very young kids who are on the streets, who live their life using and inhaling inhalants, and then they are usurped into crimes of various nature. Even the urban rich. Again, the drug mafia then involves you and engulfs you into various other nefarious activities like illegal gambling. I mean, gambling is of course illegal, but gambling, online gambling, or illegitimate sexual activities, and then just kind of suck you into a phenomena where it is impossible for you to get out of it. There is stigma. You can't talk to your peers. You can't talk to your family. Seeking help is far away. It just tends to complicate a very young adolescent mind who has recently been compounded with drug use, where the chemistry is now going haywire. There is guilt, there is pain, there is also a cognitive dissonance, and
That's
the
right.
individual is
Also,
not
very
able to
quickly,
deal
Dr.
with it.
Raheja, and what you've heard from your young patients here, because their homes don't know about it, their parents don't know about this. How have they had access? How have they got access here to substance abuse? How is it working? How does it remain to be a huge secret at home?
It is woven in the fabric of society in a manner where you are introduced to it by a peer, and initially money is not an issue. It is given to you free of cost, and in a few usages you become dependent on it in a manner that you are not only seeking it, but you're willing to go to any extent to be able to keep reinforcing the habit of addiction. So people from good families, you'll find that they don't shy away from stealing, from selling small petty things, or the ones who have access to money. It takes a long time before it gets noticed and comes in the knowledge of the parents that a large amount is being used and is not accounted for. And by then, a lot of damage is done. The individual is not only addicted, but is now is so complicated that the family doesn't know where and how to find the right help, how to be able to deal with the stigma, how to find the right doctor, how to find the right resource. So I think it is the responsibility of society to be able to start talking about it, and I think it starts here with a dialogue and a debate like
Right.
this.
So there's something very important that you've raised in this discussion, that the younger the addict, the more difficult the de-addiction process gets, because this is not an independent adult who knows the system, who knows where to go, who's aware of Alcoholic Anonymous, who's aware of helplines. So the younger, if you're looking at a very young child, a teenager who gets addicted, would absolutely have no clue of how to start the process of de-addiction, and would have no clue of how this is damaging his or her life as well. So the younger our victims are, the more dangerous it gets. And it seems to what both of our experts, both doctors with us on panel here, saying that yes, their victims are getting younger. We're going to be taking in some of our viewers calling in as well. We're going to be taking in some of their voices here, because it's very important, as we mentioned at the start of it here, on how this is affecting everyday people. This is affecting our society. Let's get in Sriram from Mumbai. Please go ahead.
So I have been listening to your debate for a while now. Okay, I have been listening to your debate. What the doctor says, I'm completely aligned to his thought. But then this is just a small, hint. I have been all my life staying in Mumbai. I work for a corporate. It's not limited only to, the kids. Take any corporate offsite, take any corporate party. It's easily available. It's so easily available in these corporate parties. It's not only limited to, again, a particular segment.
Absolutely.
There is a pocket wherein, within Bombay, if you go, I'm not even talking about the affluent family, middle class, well-educated 40s, 50s gentlemen. I mean, openly it's available. So what is it that, the government can also do at the grassroots level? Education has to happen at home.
Absolutely.
We need to be
Yes,
aware
we appreciate the point that you've shared here. Let's get in Mr. Ramanathan here on this. Ramanathan, it's not just about busting drug rackets. It's once again looking at this aspect of how crazily easily available it really is, and I'm calling this crazy here because it's far more open. There are incidents that the police is aware of as well. We're not really going to be generalizing this across the board, but there have been incidents reported on record in Punjab where the police and the drug cartel nexus has been established, has been investigated, has been scrutinized in investigations and courts here as well. Is the intent right? Which is why we keep saying that this headline flashing of celebrity names, rich names, it doesn't end there. The menace is far deeper, which can touch your home, my home, God forbid, anyone's home right now.
Well, the intent is obviously right. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's involved in any kind of drug control program in this country or the rehabilitation of victims or survivors, I'm sure the intention is right. But the question is our strategy right? Right? We all want the same thing. We want fewer and fewer people not affected by this. So that's where the question of the free availability or the easy availability of drugs comes in. It's illegal. It should not be allowed. It should be policed. All that is true. But I think we have to start living with the reality that to some extent these drugs are going to be available in our society for the foreseeable future. We've tried for decades. America's war against drugs is a big cautionary tale for all of us. They've spent billions and billions of dollars trying to control various different, illegal drugs coming into the borders, and they have failed for decades together. So so the point is, it is easily available. Is that something we should be worried about? Yes, we should. But the idea is to make sure that as few people get as deeply impacted by this as they are right now. We have to worry about the public health impact of it. We have to instill confidence in our youngsters that the minute they think that they're going overboard, or they feel they're going overboard, they need to seek help, or we need to instill that kind of confidence in friends, saying that the minute somebody, one person in the friend circle is going overboard, they need to seek help. I think we have to build the kind of trust and faith with the youngsters, and also by and large in society, that the number of people who are losing their lives to this, the number of people who are losing their jobs to this, the number of people who are getting addicted, who are becoming dependent, that they do not get affected as much as possible. I think a blind strategy of just going against anybody and everybody. It's not just about the fact that media tom-toms this every time.
That's important. You're talking about the current circumstance here. And there's a figure that we have here that as far as drug de-addiction call centers are concerned, the number of calls that they've received in the midst of this pandemic, in this duration of the absolute lockdown that we've had from the month of April up to the month of June, the number of calls have increased. I mean, these are a huge spike in the number of calls registered in these de-addiction centers. Dr. Maini, do you think more from being a larger concern of substance abuse and drug addiction, there is right now a far more emergency situation that we are facing because of the difficulties that people are going through in life right now? There is unemployment, there is depression, there is the fear of the pandemic. This makes the emergency all the more intense right now.
Yeah. what do I say when the country when our economy is actually dependent on alcohol? Like what happened? It was banned for some time, and then they said for the boosting of the economy, they had to open the sale of the liquor. The country whose economy is actually dependent on liquor. What do I say for that country? One very important point that sir said right now was the nothing can be done for the availability. What is education? India is not educated. We are not talking about the what. How do we educate a person when you're getting a stuff at 50 yards? Every 50 yards, there's one person who's selling the whole system. It's a whole vicious cycle. The education will not work. What is public health? What is why have we done enough? We haven't even, nobody is bothered about the drugs. Yes, there is corona, there is other stuff, there is unemployment, and on top of it, there's a person who is consuming, who is taking whatever money the family has and spending it on alcohol. Yeah, and the whole family not eating anything. Yeah, and there's a person who is the drug
Right.
in this lockdown, has the drug, is the availability of the drug stopped? No. Has the availability of cigarettes stopped? No. I'm seeing patients every day. Yeah, and then they say everything is available. Everything is available off the board, on the board,
That's a
whatever.
very interesting point. It is the circuit, the system of making alcohol. Alcohol, of course, is a very organized industry, but the system of making drugs available in the midst of this lockdown that continues. Yes, absolutely. We're going to be taking in one of our callers here as well. We have Anand from Delhi. Let's take our caller. Absolutely, Dr. Mene. We got your point. Anand, please go ahead.
I just want to make a very simple point. Hello. The simple point is, like Dr. Haja said.
Yes, go ahead.
The addiction is a simple process of your brain. Brain, some people have intuition towards having addiction. So now it is the parents' job who are at home to take care of the children. If they too take care of the children properly, the addiction process will come down slowly. So it is perfectly the job of the parents to see to that there is no addiction in the family.
Okay, Anand, thanks for calling in. Not entirely convinced with that argument here, but I'm going to take that point later with the doctors on our panel. But let's get in Mr. Shankar Bidari. Mr. Shankar, what you've heard here, that it is this system of making drugs available which is so strong, so ingrained that even at the time of not the absolute, but even at the time of the partial lockdown, even at this stage of the country gradually opening up, it is the drug supply which hasn't dried up. And that speaks a lot about agencies not looking in the direction where it matters.
The entire police force in the country was busy in enforcing restricting the restrictions imposed on as a part of the measures to control COVID-19. Okay, another thing is that alcohol was banned in all the states of the country. As a substitute for alcohol, the demand for these drugs might have increased during the last 4 months. I do agree. There is no problem about that. But the issue is that first, as a victim already has pointed out, the family should become strong. The parents should take care of their children properly, and they should be educated. In the 8th, 9th and 10th also, there should be some lessons included regarding the ill effects of the using the drugs, and children should be made aware of the havoc drugs will wreak in their lives. Regarding enforcement aspect, it is a continuous thing. As any other crime, this crime also cannot be controlled 100%, but it has to be a continuous effort. Each state should have one SP ranking officer with a narcotic full-time job of enforcing the Narcotics Act only, that is NDPS Act only. Then I think we can pay attention. Now what happens? Everyday people will
All
be
right,
busy
Mr.
in so
Shankar,
many
we
other things.
got your point here, but not entirely sure that we accuse a home system, we accuse parents here of this.
No,
Let's get in a voice from the person who is on the process of de-addiction, the victim who's spoken to us earlier at the start of the show. If you've been listening here, do you think is it entirely fair to point fingers now instead of expecting the authorities to be doing more, instead of expecting the government to improving and increasing de-addiction centers? Let's just blame homes, let's just blame parents. What do you have to say on that?
Again, I would like to share my experience here rather than talking general. As far as I am concerned, there were times when, there were challenges in my own family, and I did not get the required attention that a child really has to get at the age of a teenager, that is, at the age of 12 or 13. And because of that, I came to know later on when I came into the recovery program that there is a hole in the soul as a human being that I have, as an alcoholic. And this hole in the soul, I try to fill up with alcohol, with drugs. So even if there is something banned, in the market, it's not going to help. For example, if I was prescribed medicines to take care of my mental health, I started abusing those medicines. Nobody asked me to abuse them. So if my family dynamics would have been different, my family of origin would have been different, it would have been. But at the same time, I will not blame my family entirely. Alcoholism or drug addiction is a disease just like any other disease.
That's
like
right.
cancer, diabetes, etc. And it needs to be treated with the help of de-addiction, with the help of a 12-step recovery program. Like for alcohol treatment, we have Alcoholics Anonymous. For drugs, we have Narcotics Anonymous. So these are 12-step programs. And there are people like me who need additional counseling or therapies to deal with the day-to-day issues. I am an extremely sensitive person. So sometimes I'm not able to handle these issues just like normal people in the world do. In spite of being in recovery, I still need added support from fellow alcoholics and, sometimes counselors, sometimes therapists to deal with my day-to-day issues. For example, if I have lost my job in the pandemic today, a normal person might go and have a beer with friends and just say, okay, chill out, look for another job and things will be okay. Whereas for a person like me, if I pick up a drink today, it is going to be fatal for me because I suffer from a disease and I will not shut the lid of the bottle. So what will the alcohol shops do? And one more thing I would like to tell you about alcoholics, because my first choice of substance is alcohol, is that if I want to drink, I'll travel miles and miles away to get it. I have been in places where there were no liquor shops, but even then I managed to get a drink. So that is how it is. I cannot blame anybody here. And even I am not to be blamed. My family is not to be blamed. It is a disease, as simple as that, and there is a solution to it.
Right. Okay. Dr. Raheja, yes, you wanted to make a point here. Instead of blaming home systems which are far more vulnerable, at least take our agencies or our government to task here on this.
So I think the control has to be both dual. Again, a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. With the top-down approach, when the enforcement is strong, countries like Singapore, certain countries in the Middle East, where there is almost like capital punishment for drug use, it's unfair to say that drugs are just not available, but the incidence is extremely low. But our anonymous user who's brought a beautiful point, that somebody who becomes addicted has a personality which is prone, which is called addictive personality, has a diathesis for addiction. And that needs to be developed at the early stage, in the middle stage. The biology of the body and the brain needs to be corrected. There has to be psychological support that has to be provided, and the society needs to be more caring, more empathetic, more non-judgmental. Because when we start to do that, I think then we are able to exude empathy. We don't see an addict as somebody who's a morally wrong person. I think one of the biggest mistakes that the society makes is that we tend to judge. We think they are evil people or they are bad people. They are not. What they really need is help. And I think if the right help is provided with the
That's
with
right.
the right empathetic support, that's when the recovery begins to happen. And I think it's a gradual process with ups and downs, with slips and relapses. And I think we need to be tolerant. The family needs to be more vigilant. And the only way to nip it in the bud, as one of the caller was
Absolutely.
saying, Mr. Anand, that we need to be sensitive in recognizing it in early stages. There are cues to be receptive and perceptive
All
to
right.
know
Let's
that
let's
a
get
young
in our
child
team
might
of correspondents, both from Mumbai and Karnataka, who in fact have been tracking ongoing investigations of two drug rackets that are being investigated. First, going to Mumbai, our deputy news editor Mayuresh Ganpati getting us those inputs. Mayuresh, this is a case which is largely now being referred to as a Bollywood drugs cartel. And this is where it tends to be misleading because it's only attacking certain high-profile names here. If this is a drug racket that is being investigated and has been busted, why just call it a Bollywood drugs cartel? Most certainly, this would have been a case of selling drugs to ordinary people as well.
Absolutely, sir. And if you see that why they are only targeting Bollywood, because Bollywood has been always linked with the drugs. And when there are celebrities or Bollywood celebrities attached to this kind of such kind of cartel or such kind of drugs, then certainly that case automatically becomes the high profile case. And as you said perfectly, because these punters, or we can say these drug peddlers, which they have arrested, if you see their age is between 20 to 27. So they are not the seasoned one. They are just, we can say, youngsters whom they have arrested. So they are yet to reach to the top level in that hierarchy, or they are yet to reach the main people. These are the small timers whom they have arrested so far. So certainly NCB is working on that. That's what they are saying. But if you could see that today's remand application, in which they didn't even mention that there are some kind of direct links with the Bollywood, or say Riya Chakravarti, or to the Shouvik Chakravarti, which NCB was basically making noise about.
Right, but Mayuresh, do we have a fairer sense of where all these peddlers have sold their drugs? It's not just about having one rich, influential client here. It's about other areas in our society that have been affected as well.
Absolutely. If you could see that these drug peddlers whom NCB unit, Mumbai unit have arrested, they are from one region. They are from the western suburb, from Juhu or either from Bandra. So NCB is yet to get more information about their clients, though they are saying that in their statement they have taken several names, but NCB didn't reveal those names in the court also. So that's why they had asked for the, in the court, they asked for the remand. Today, Zed's remand, they have got till 9th of September. So now it would be interesting to see when the next hearing happens. At least NCB will be having few names of the clients.
All right. Well, Mayuresh, thank you for getting us those details, those very significant inputs on this case, which is still being investigated. It's called the Bollywood drugs cartel, but most certainly there are victims, many, many more here, who are from the larger middle class here as well, as we've been saying at the start of the show, that this is affecting our homes as well. Let's be more open to that idea. It's a horrible idea here, but this is ringing in far too close home. I'm going to get in further inputs regarding the Karnataka case as well in just a bit, but let's go across to Ramanathan here on this point. Ramanathan, in the cases of drug rackets that have been busted in the past as well, have we managed to analyze the impact that it is having on ground? If per se that there is one youngster who's dependent on one supplier, that supplier gets arrested from one drug racket and is unavailable, how easy is it for that youngster to go across and buy it from somewhere else?
Yeah, I have precisely been working on stories which look into that, and I've been working on these stories for a couple of years now. And it's very clear that a democratization of the distribution of the drug trade is happening. largely fueled by the dark web and people being able to buy these drugs on the dark web using bitcoins. It's pretty easy now to just go online and buy these drugs, and they just be couriered home. Of late, of course, the Customs Department and the NCB have been cracking down on the couriers which have been coming in, especially from countries like Amsterdam. I mean, countries like Netherlands or other countries in Europe, and they're also keeping a close eye on things coming in from the US. But it is clear that, as I said, we are understanding definitely a lot more with every bust. I think NCB gains a lot more knowledge about how these drugs are coming in, how these drugs are bought, and what the supply chain looks like. But it's extremely difficult to control it anymore. We're used to these, kind of the idea that there is a big cartel out there which is operating the global trade. There's some drug lord sitting somewhere in Mexico or something who's operating the whole thing. It may be somewhat true, but things are changing and changing rapidly. We're living in a world now where any teenager with some limited knowledge about the dark web and how bitcoins operate, he can just go and order it like I order my things on Amazon. So to answer your question, are we learning? Yes, we are. But what we're learning is something which is certainly very worrisome, and it's not something which is helping our cause at all. What we're learning is that we are failing in trying to control the drug distribution, which is happening globally now via the dark web. So every bust is probably a step ahead in controlling the trade. With every bust, you are probably, you are able to bring one person down, and that's probably a good thing. But it's not going to be enough. If you ask any NCB officer, they'll always tell you, what, we don't want the small guys, we want the big guys.
It's never enough. As you said, we're continuously just catching up.
That's not
That's
happening.
right.
But
let's in fact go across to our correspondent Neha Hebbale, who's been getting us more details on the Karnataka drugs racket case that has been busted. Neha, what we're hearing about this case here is also, more importantly, or what the agencies continue to share with us, is now yet another high-profile name. An actor who's been summoned on Monday is going to be questioned now in connection to this case here. But because such a huge amount, such a huge quantity and variety of drugs that were seized in the raids in this drug racket here, it most certainly was reaching out to a much larger number of people instead of just a few handful celebrities or well-known names.
That's absolutely right, Seher. And, yes, while on one hand, we are looking at a very prominent actor of Sandalwood, Raghav Trivedi over here being summoned by the police today and not appearing in front of the police, but in fact actually sending her advocates. She's gone on to clarify that she's willing to cooperate and answer all the questions of the police. But also at the same time, let's bring in the fact that just yesterday we're seeing a very prominent politician's son also, Binish Kodieri, who in fact happened to have loaned money to one of the accused who's been arrested in this larger drug racket. So it's not only in Karnataka, but like you rightly said, this is something that has its tentacles spread wide. And now we're also seeing a Kerala connect to this. Now, apart from that, if we're actually looking at the course of the investigation itself and why Sandalwood actors' names have now started to come up, it's important for us to remember that an arrest just today evening in Bengaluru of a person named Ravi, which the Joint Commissioner himself has gone on to say, of crime, Sandeep Patil has gone on to say, was a very big bust for them, that they are going to be able to establish how many more drug dealers are involved because of this one person's involvement. So the racket, of course, there, as far as Karnataka is concerned, the NCB has gone on to state that prominent musicians and also actors are involved in this. We're slowly starting to see this, but we'll have to wait and see how, to establish how far and wide this is spreading.
Neha, thank you for getting us those updates. And we're once again going to go across to our viewers who've been calling in as well. We have Mr. Kailash from Mumbai. Please go ahead.
Yeah, madam, you are absolutely right. It is not just about Bollywood and TV serial actors and actresses. It's about the drug menace everywhere in Mumbai. Believe me, madam, after 9 o'clock, anybody can, 9 o'clock in the night, 9 p.m., just go out anywhere in any lanes of Mumbai, not only Bandra. Any lanes in Mumbai, you will find drugs available everywhere, right under the nose of police station and police cops. We have a narcotic control board in Mumbai. And what? I don't know who's going to take action. They're all in cahoots. I'm sorry to say, in spite of being our Scotland Yard so-called number 2 police force, it's such a dangerous thing, madam. We are very concerned about our next generation because after 9 p.m., it's very dangerous for young boys and young girls to be
That's
allowed
right.
to socialize. It's very dangerous, and I don't know who's responsible.
Absolutely, this is a
Why
very
no action is taken?
vulnerable section of people, of our homes that we're talking about. Absolutely, we understand the emotion there, Mr. Kailash. Thank you for calling in. Dr. Meni, how does this make your job even more difficult as a de-addiction specialist? Because it's no longer about a very difficult process here to have access to drugs, to buy drugs. When you're working on one of your patients here, the biggest challenge is that the patient is not next to drugs. The temptation so strong. But the fact that it is so easily available, how does this make your job all the more difficult?
Yeah, that is the reason I was in a hyper mode because I really am concerned for my patients and for the country at large. And thankfully, and I'm really happy that these big names are getting caught like the correspondent I saw the big names, the Bollywood names are being addressed. Yeah, and first time in the this thing we are de-glamorizing the whole thing. I've seen in Bollywood what they do. You see the movies, they are glamorizing the whole thing. You know how the addiction starts. Basically, yes, they're saying parental smoke, parental addiction, and parental stuff, but it's mainly the peer pressure and the social models that make a major impact on the young mind. Yeah, a person we need to understand that the age a person will not start drugs at age 30 or age 35. Very few will do that. It's the age between what say 10 years to 15 years to 16 years to 18 years at the max that the person enters into the whole stuff. And cigarette is a gateway for all the addiction. And cigarette is a legally available drug. Yeah, and cigarette and alcohol, like the female who came here was for the alcohol addiction. Yes, they are socially accepted, but still they are all drugs. And then yes, it makes the job difficult because we make the person quit smoking, but quit smoking and quit addictions. And when the person goes out, it becomes very difficult. Like during the process of the treatment itself, when the patient is admitted with us, they are getting calls from the people that अच्छा माल आया है, ये ले लो, वो ले लो. So how do we handle that? Like till the time the person is with us, the chances of relapse becomes very high. The relapse becomes very high, and they tend to lure the person with
Let's
again.
In fact, let's also get in a view of the person who's here with us, who's now undergoing de-addiction here. From your personal experience, how much of this is a continuous fight? You're continuously not just fighting temptation, but you're fighting something which is so easily available, which can be available in the next hour at your doorstep. How do you manage?
Absolutely right. It is easily available. It is all around me. Like one of the previous speakers was sharing, it's available at every hook and corner of Delhi. There's so many wine shops, and if there are no wine shops, I have my own friends who have got huge stocks of alcohol lying at their houses. So when I came into recovery in my very first year, second year, I was very clearly told by all the fellow alcoholics and my, my counselor or whosoever was guiding me, not to be in the company who were using or drinking, because I was at a very vulnerable stage. And it is because of the 12-step program that we were actually trained how to stay away from alcohol or drugs one day at a time. So that is how it is. And today, when I am more than 10 years sober, it has become like a habit. If there is a bottle of alcohol lying in the house, in fact, if I have a bar at home or if I have guests at home who are drinking, it's just like a piece of furniture for me. And another reason why I get along, why I don't get tempted is because I have seen hell. I have seen hell as a woman. I have seen the after effects of addiction in my life, which I can't really tell you publicly, but you can really imagine what a woman can go through. And one very healthy fear that I have in my life is that do I want to go back to hell? The answer is a big no. Because initially, it is very beautiful. It is very tempting when I have alcohol, when I take drugs, when I have abused medicines. But when I get used to these things and I see the after effects, I start losing my health, I start losing my career, relationships, money, everything under the sun. I lost everything, in my life. I was like a living vegetable. And I had no other choice but to get into recovery. So today, it's not that I don't get tempted. I'll be lying to you. I do get tempted.
All right.
Because, the whole world is going merrymaking and people are working from home and they say, come for a party. But I know.
No, this is very appreciable. More power to you here, because this is a very difficult fight here. But I can get in a very quick final response here from Mr. Shankar. Mr. Shankar, one of our callers called in, speaking from his own experience, saying that without doubt the police is looking away. What do you have to say on that? If you're talking about being more open to how people in our homes are vulnerable, let's also be open in accepting that yes, there is an operational police nexus irrespective of the state. This could be in every state.
There may be 1 or 2% of the people might have been conniving with this kind of racket. I don't deny that. We also have got equal number of rascals like any other section of the society. We don't deny it. But to say generally that when police is conniving, Narcotics Control Bureau is conniving is not correct. First thing is that the education, family, upbringing, that is very important. Second thing is preventive. Third thing is that is the enforcement of the provisions of the act. Third thing is that is curative. That is the de-addiction and all.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave it on the enforcement here of our system. I'll leave it at that here. We'll leave the responsibility of the parents and children on home, but let's also look at the responsibility of the authorities here, and whether or not they're looking in the right direction, whether this is being nipped in the bud or we're perpetually just playing catching up. There is more variety of drugs. There is more drugs cheaper, easily available, over the counter, over your WhatsApp messages, and this continues to remain a huge challenge. And remember never to think that this is a menace that is being faced by a certain cluster, a certain set of society, be it celebrities or politicians or rich influential people. This is across the board. Please wake up. God forbid, your home can be affected as much. And if you see a drug racket case being busted, if you read about it, thank God for that. Thank you for being with us.